we start, I wanted to say that in light of the demonstrations and this troubling period we're dealing with in America, each editor and myself wanted to make sure that we shared with you books that contribute to the conversation and help kids talk about racism, activism, resistance, and teach them empathy and inclusion and the importance of celebrating difference. So each editor will be kicking off their presentation with that title from their round that they're going to share with you. And so without further ado, I will jump in and share my screen. So if everyone other than Caitlyn DeLuey, who's up first, could go on mute and off camera. All right. Okay, Caitlyn DeLuey of Caitlyn DeLuey Books.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's so fun to see some faces to names that Emily has brought up in some of our meetings back in the offices. Thank you so much for joining us all. Behind me is, I made a quilt, a visual quilt of a number of books that have been published over the years that feature strong, authentic, important Black voices. And I just, in light of what's going on in our world, I just thought they all deserve a shout out. So that's why I'm multicolor behind me. My book that I want to remind everyone about, which is not showing up on here, I think, but it's on the big screen, sorry, is All American Boys. All American Boys is the very first book I published when my imprint started. It's Jason Reynolds with Brendan Kiley. It was published in 2015. When we thought a book like this had a short lifespan, it would not be needed for another 5 years or another 10 years or another 20 years. And yet today, this past weekend, this past week, we realized books like this are more important than ever. All American Boys features Rashad, who is a Black boy who drops a bag of chips in a bodega, and the police instantly think he's up to something terrible and beat the heck out of him. This is being witnessed by Quinn, a white kid in the same school, who witnesses the whole episode and is too fearful to tell anyone who's really at fault, because one of the cops is actually his best friend's older brother, who has been his mentor his whole life. And how these two boys figure out how to have a dialogue and how they end up together marching on the streets against police violence. It's a manifesto. It went on to win a Curtis Scott King honor and the inaugural Walter Award, the Walter D. Myers We Need Diverse Books Award. And it is not, there couldn't be a more timely book. I'm sad that there couldn't be a more timely book, but I'm glad that we have this book for this time.
Ooh.
Jason Reynolds' Long Way Down. Unfortunately, my books aren't showing up on the screen. I'd show you the original hardcover. We are now publishing Long Way Down as a graphic novel. There are a bunch of images to see. Oh, thank you, Emily. She thinks
You're
of everything.
welcome.
Everything. Danica Novgorodov is illustrating this. Danica usually only ever illustrates her own work, but she was so taken by Long Way Down that she had to break her own personal rule to illustrate this. As you can see, the images are going to be gorgeous. And this is the story that's told in 60 seconds in an elevator when young Will's older brother has been shot by a guy in a gang, and Will is so certain he knows who shot his brother. And each stop of the elevator, as he goes down with a gun in his back pocket to go and murder the man, the kid who murdered his own brother, each elevator stop brings in a new character who has also been, has lost their life to gang violence. And the entire story is about this cycle of gang violence and how hard it is to get out of it. The ending is one where you don't know what he chooses, and you inform what you think the ending is. And it's Jason Reynolds being his brilliant self. Saucy. So Saucy has a very different flavor to it. It's Cynthia Caudill. You know that she is Kira Kira, which won a Newbery, and The Thing About Luck, which was a National Book Award winner. This is her youngest book yet. This is just past chapter book. it's delicious and delightful, and I think there's some interiors, and it's about this little girl. She's one of 4 quadruplets, that was redundant, who feels like she has no place in the world. Her one brother's really good at music, one's really good at hockey, the other is a genius, and she has nothing, but she finds this little piglet on the side of the road that's ill, and she suddenly knows that Saucy is what she's supposed to be doing. She's supposed to be taking care of this piglet she named Saucy. And it turns into this bedlam because a little cute piglet can turn into a 500-pound pig that can tear the door off of your refrigerator. And what do you do when you love something so much, but you know you can't properly take care of it? The ending is very happy, I'll tell you that. And it's just Cynthia and her, again, delicious writing. The last book I'll tell you about, I wish I had hours, is Where We Are, which is Alison McGee, who is writing this very interesting psychological story about a kid named Micah whose parents are getting drawn into a cult, and he fears for them, and they do not see reason because they are getting drawn into this cult. So he decides to join them as they leave to join this doomsday cult, and finds himself trapped, and he can't get out of this area where the head of the cult is keeping the followers. The second point of view of the story is Sesame, Micah's best friend, who goes under, who will not stop searching for her best friend because she knows there has to be a way to find him because life can't exist for her if that's not a true thing. And it's about the power of family and the power of love, and how people have to be careful of certain people in power because their charisma is not always projecting who they really are. It's a page turner and very, very unusual. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Caitlin. Up next, we have Sylvie Frank, Senior Editor of Paula Wiseman Books.
Hi all, thanks so much for being here. I'm excited to tell you about this book. I acquired this manuscript after a phone call with a brand new agent who told me that she was about to go out with a project about a hippo, an earthworm, and a light bulb who love rhinos, to which I said, I love it already, please send it to me. And I was immediately charmed by the William Steigian quirkiness, magic pebble, talking light bulb, and this unusual friendship. But more than that, I liked how it smartly explored themes of inclusion, expectations, and prejudice, and it leaves room for discussion at the end. This is the story of Hudson, the hippo, Fran, the earthworm, and Jean, the light bulb, who have one thing in common, a profound appreciation for rhinoceroses. And so they form a secret rhino appreciation society in which a key activity is wearing paper horns. Sometimes, of course, this results in a fire because that's what happens when a light bulb wears a paper horn. But then they meet a rhino for the first time and they discover that she is not at all how they expected her to be. She is a gardener, not someone who charges. I will tell you the ending, so spoiler alert, Ivy the rhino helps them start a new club where everyone is invited. We're delighted to be publishing author Jonathan E. Jacobs' debut book, and artist Cynthia Caudill has created a masterpiece with her detail-filled 3D illustrations. She draws the pieces first, scans them, colors them digitally, then prints and cuts them out before photographing them for dioramas. They're truly, truly amazing. And Booklist gave it a star review and raved, this engaging romp will be a great way to initiate conversations about diversity, tolerance, and acceptance. And next is Joey, the story of Joe Biden. We worked with Dr. Jill Biden in 2012 on a book about military families called Don't Forget, God Bless Our Troops, illustrated by Raul Colon. And last summer, John Anderson and Paula realized that there was not a single picture book biography about young Joe Biden. So we called Dr. Jill Biden, and with the help of Kathy Krull, she said she wanted to write it. Kathy is award-winning for her work, and we signed up Amy June Bates, an incredible illustrator who can truly do anything beautifully. And they are a dream team. From this richly told book, readers will learn stories never before told about Joe Biden. They will witness his bravery, like being the only boy to climb a slippery swing flagpole, his determination, like when he took on a work-study job, painting buildings and fences so that he could attend a private high school, and his compassion, like when at age 8, he took care of a friend and his mom while his dad was away. Back matter includes delightful Bidenisms and photos never seen from the family archives. And last is When I Draw a Panda. So here's something completely different from Amy June Bates. When I Draw a Panda follows her breakout, The Big Umbrella, which was the first book that she wrote and illustrated. This book began as a funny spin on a how to draw book, but I was working with art director Laurent Lin, and the more we talked to Amy about it, the more it changed and became something more. It begins with a girl who loves to draw, but is frustrated about not being able to draw something the right way. When she tries to draw a perfect circle, she ends up with a cloud, a flat tire, and a scoop of ice cream. But when the girl draws a panda, it comes to life and shows her that he likes to draw his own way. So when Panda is told to draw the right way, he would rather draw the left way. Panda's independent spirit is what sets free the protagonist's imagination, giving her permission and confidence she needs to create art the way that she wants to. My favorite spread is the one that says, when they say draw it that way, I do, but I add a unicorn horn later. In the end, this book became profoundly personal for Amy. Her youngest son is on the autism spectrum and has a tendency to take things literally and become frustrated when he can't do something successfully. And Amy hopes that this book shows that the point of art is to love it and to express yourself, not to do it the right way. With a tone that is reminiscent of If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, and a panda who follows in the footsteps of Hobbes from Calvin and Hobbes, this book celebrates individuality and creative voice.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sylvie.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Alan Johnston, VP and publisher of Beach Lane Books, in your backyard.
Hi guys, hi again, Kaliba people. Marla and I really enjoyed talking to you a couple weeks ago. That was very fun. So We Disagree is this lively and funny call and response between a mouse and a squirrel who disagree about literally everything until they discover that maybe they don't. It is thought-provoking and wise at its core, but it's just also all delivered with humor, terrific rhyme, and completely engaging and endearing illustrations, as you can see. And for so many obvious reasons, it really is for the youngest set, like a book that is for our time and all time, really. But some of you guys, I just saw that chat comment come through. Some of you guys may already know Bethany. She's done a number of previous books with other houses, and she lives in Sausalito. Okay, so it's been 3 years since we've had a new Jan Thomas book on our list, and now she's back with a big bang, The Chicken Who Couldn't. It's about believing in yourself and overcoming feelings of inadequacy in the face of challenges, and it's all handled with Jan's trademark hilarious characters, zany antics, warmth, and humor. And we have, just as a reminder, it's a paper over boards, no jacket, and on the back, we've got 4 of Jan's beloved backlist covers pictured, and we just really hope that having been away for 3 years from the scene, that people will remember Jan again, because her stuff is really so perfect for preschoolers. And then last for me today is Looking for Smile. Bear and Smile are the best of friends. They do everything together until one morning Smile does not appear. With the lightest of touches in both text and art, God, I just got goosebumps just saying that statement. This book is something seriously special, you guys. It deftly handles the universal and very real topic of feeling sad and having a really blue day and not having a clue about what's going to bring you out of it, if anything will. And, you know, I know everybody has to be leery of editors saying that a book could be an instant classic, but with this one, I really do feel that it is an instant classic. And as I said, with the lightest of touches, beautifully illustrated, it handles, without ever saying it, the topic of also depression and how friendship can bring you out of it, but sometimes it takes a really long time to come out of it. And you guys may know Lauren Stringer from her many previous books that she's not only written and illustrated, but also illustrated by other people, including Cynthia Ryland. And the author, Ellen Tarlow, is a senior editor in the early childhood division of Scholastic Education. And I met these two. All right, Lauren and I taught a workshop last year, literally just a year ago. And Ellen, this manuscript was submitted as a critique manuscript. And we loved it in that moment and decided, Lauren dropped all the other projects she was working on and committed to doing this. And so now we're going to have this really powerful book coming out in the fall.
Thank you, Alan.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Jennifer.
Yeah.
Senior editor of Simon & Schuster Books for Young Readers.
Hi, everybody. So I'm delighted to talk about Cia Martinez and the Moonlit Beginning of Everything. This is Aristotle and Dante meets Roswell by way of Laurie Halse Anderson, which is to say that this book is full of gorgeous writing, deeply felt emotions, and aliens. This book follows a Mexican-American teen named Cia Martinez, whose mother was deported by ICE 3 years ago, then died trying to cross back into the desert, back into the United States. Cia is filled with anger and grief, but in spite of that, every new moon, she drives into the desert to light candles to guide her mom's spirit home. But then one night, under a million stars, Cia's life and the world as we know it cracks wide open because a blue-lit spacecraft crashes in front of Cia's car, and it's carrying her mom, who is very much alive. This book is just plain brilliant, exploring themes of grief and anger and the ways in which trauma passes from generation to generation. It's a story about first love, about mothers and daughters, and the irreparable impact racist policies and ICE deportations have had on immigrant communities and communities of color. But also, as I mentioned, there are aliens, and the speculative elements are woven in a way that feels really grounded in the real world. And in fact, this entire thread of Cia's mom being abducted by aliens is a dizzyingly smart allegory for the great lengths parents would go to be reunited with their children. This is a book that's seriously unlike anything I've ever read. It weaves a smart concept with a relatable voice. It tells an incredible story, but also challenges us to take a closer look at the world we live in. It's raw and it's real, but it's also deeply empowering. It's one of the most special books to have ever crossed my desk, and I feel hugely honored to have played a part in its journey into the world. And so seriously, I hope you get a chance to take a look at this one. And please email me if you do. I love book clubbing it, and this is so special to me. So, all right. Next up is Shine. So growing up, I was told that the only viable career paths for me was to be a doctor or a lawyer. And the books and the movies and the shows that I consumed at the time really cemented that truth for me. If there was ever an Asian person in them, they'd be a terrible stereotype or speak with heavy accents or were otherwise exoticized. But then two random things came into my life that changed my world and my perception of what's possible for me as a young Asian American woman: ice skating and K-pop. Different as they are from each other, both gave space for young Asian women to exist and thrive far outside the parameters of what I had imagined was possible based on what I watched, what I read, and what I was told. And so for my tween years, well into my early 20s, I became obsessed with rooting for Michelle Kwan and Christy Yamaguchi, and as well as watching K-pop videos nonstop. I took a lot of comfort in this idea that Asian women didn't just have to be doctors or lawyers, and that they could actually be artists too. And so imagine my surprise and excitement when a few years ago, I received a submission written by none other than Jessica Jeong, the former lead singer of the genre-defining K-pop girl group Girls' Generation. This book is loosely inspired by Jessica's own experiences as a Korean American teen navigating the glamorous Technicolor cutthroat world of K-pop. Shine is an utter charm of a read, one that is fun and frothy, juicy and romantic, and pulls back the curtain on an industry that's notorious for keeping things pretty close to the vest. But more than that, this book has some really big things to say about cultural identity, love, and navigating sexism and double standards as a young woman in the music industry. This book definitely hits all the bright and poppy notes that make for a hugely commercial read, but I think it also has the emotional layers that will appeal to fans of authors like Jenny Han and Sadia Menon. There's so much more I can say about this book. Jessica has over 9 million followers on Instagram. This book has become the center of major speculation and discussion on the internet. There's even an entire Reddit thread analyzing the cover copy I wrote, with fans desperately trying to figure out what's fact and what's fiction in Jessica's story. There's even a fringe conspiracy that me, Jennifer Ung, the editor, is a pseudonym for Jessica Jeong, and that Jessica is editing her own novel. It's seriously so wild, but I think it speaks to this larger truth that there's a lot of organic excitement and buzz surrounding this book. If it's not already clear, we think Shine has all the makings of a major hit in the YA space and the potential to be a meaningful one too. I can't wait for you to read this one. And I quickly just want to mention Rent a Boyfriend by Gloria Chow, which is coming out this fall and racked up literally 7 blurbs from indie booksellers, thanks to the amazing, incredible Emily Hutton. This one is a delight of a read that follows Chloe Wong as she hires a fake boyfriend to appease her traditional Taiwanese parents, which ends up leading to shenanigans and maybe real love. My favorite thing about this book is that it speaks to the pressure so many of us feel to live our lives under the weight of what your parents expect from you, to the point where it can be sometimes toxic. Chloe's journey to finally choose herself over what her parents want from her was such a gratifying reading experience, and one that I think will be a real beacon for teens navigating similar situations. Gloria Chow is the author of American Panda, which was an Indie Next selection and received 4-star reviews among other accolades. We do feel that with its hooky premise, its irresistible voice, and its fresh cover look that has some serious Netflix original rom-com vibes, Rent a Boyfriend has breakout potential. Thank you all.
Jen. Next up, Kendra Levin from Simon & Schuster Books for Young Readers.
Thanks so much, Emily, and everybody. Thanks for having me, and thanks for being here today, particularly with everything that's going on. It's a challenging time to focus, and so I appreciate you putting your focus on these books. And, you know, as Emily said at the beginning, we really do feel that we have books here that can help guide and lead the conversation around race in this country that's happening right now. The Black Kids by Christina Hammonds Reed is a perfect example. And this is a book that is unbelievably timely. And, you know, I was just talking with the author this morning. She lives in Los Angeles. And she was saying that, you know, when she first started writing this book, which is set in 1992 in Los Angeles, surrounding the LA riots, she had conceived it as a historical fiction novel, and really had not, could not even, you know, imagine that it would be quite as relevant as it is right now. I mean, she wanted it to reflect the world that we now live in, but the extent to which it's now relevant is mind-blowing. This is the story of Ashley. She's moderately well-off Black teenager going to a predominantly white school. And she's kind of used to flattening herself in order to fit in with the friends that she's known since she was little. And then as the beating of Rodney King footage shows up on TV and LA starts to boil over with these riots, she starts to go on this whole journey of identity and sort of figuring out who she is in relation to her white friends, who she is in relation to LA's Black community, and just asking a lot of questions about what it means to be Black in America in 1992 that are just as relevant to today. It's a very powerful read about identity. It's also a lot of fun. Like, this is something that I really don't want to be missed about this book, is while it talks about the riots, the author always says, you know, this is more than a book about a riot. It's a love letter to Los Angeles, which is where the author Christina grew up and still lives. It's a love letter to Blackness, to girlhood, to friendship. And there's so much in it that's celebrates Black joy in addition to sources of pain. So it's got it all. It has everything for this current moment. And yeah, I wish we could publish it this week. Like, it's, I can't wait to get it into the hands of teens and adults, frankly. And I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything about Christina. Yeah, she's a debut. That, I knew there was one more thing I wanted to say. She's a debut author. This is her debut. In the picture book space, for something on a very light note, we have Unicorns Are the Worst by Alex Willen. This is the story of a goblin named Gilbert who just can't understand why unicorns are the ones getting all the attention all the time. You know, there are plenty of other magical creatures, such as goblins, who have all kinds of great powers and have a lot to offer the world. And it just doesn't seem fair that when you go to the store, it's filled with unicorn lunchboxes and unicorn candles and unicorn frisbees, and you know, it's just not right. So Gilbert is sort of on a mission to convince you, the reader, there's this store with all the unicorn swag. So he just really feels like unicorns are the worst. And of course, he ends up discovering that in a moment of, when he's in his moment of peril, the unicorns are actually the ones who step up and show that they're a little more badass than he was giving them credit for. This is just a book that I think kids will reach for the way they reach for the most sugary cereal on the shelf. It's full of glitter. The jacket is extremely glittery and bright. It's like a disco ball. And it's just great fun. And it does have a lovely message wrapped in there about, sort of making assumptions about people. But mostly it's just some nice, frivolous fun. So that's that for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Kendra. Great. Up next, we have Karen Watola, VP and Editorial Director of McElderry Books.
Hi, everybody. Unicorns. There you go. I'm going to start with Lift As You Climb, the story of Ella Baker. This is a picture book by Patricia Powell and Gregory Christie. We have a short lyrical text and very vibrant art that chronicles the life of civil rights activist Ella Baker. The title comes from something Ella's parents and grandparents taught her as a child: to lift others as you climb. And that was what Ella dedicated her life to, lifting others by fighting racial injustice. She began in the 1930s, fighting for the rights of poor and working class African Americans. In the 60s, she was an important advisor and organizer for the big push for civil rights and for the young people at the heart of those protests. She was a trailblazer for women of color at a time when the leaders of the movements were almost all men, and she is a hugely inspirational person. I would like to see her be much better known. This is the first book for children about her. I love the gorgeous colors in this book. Greg has won 6 Coretta Scott King honors and a Caldecott honor. I think his work here is so impressive in bringing to younger kids images that show the deep roots of Ella's commitment and some of the harsher aspects of a fight that sometimes becomes violent. The strength of her personality shines through in his amazing portraits of her. This book includes a repeated shout out directly to readers asking, what do you hope to accomplish? It's a call to all of us to say that this struggle is not over. See, I'm getting weepy, sorry about that, and we are seeing that so forcefully right now. So what do we as individuals hope to bring to this vital task of advancing social justice in our country? I hope this book will help kids and their parents think about these issues and take them personally. And I hope that learning about this history can help kids understand what's happening today. So a change from something to a middle grade novel where we can fall into magic through the power of books. This is Hilary McKay's The Time of Green Magic. I am always really happy to bring in a new novel. Hilary is a ridiculously talented writer. Elizabeth Wine, the author of Codename Verity, called Hilary possibly the finest writer of our time. I really wish more readers would find her books. This one is about finding a new family with the help of the magic in books. Our heroine is Abby. She is having a tough time adjusting to a new family when her dad marries a woman with 2 sons. But then they move into this ivy-covered house and strange things start to happen. When Abby reads in this house, she almost falls into the books, literally. When she is reading Kon-Tiki and on that raft on the ocean, she looks up to find that the book is wet and her lips taste like salt water. Then she discovers that her new little brother has an imaginary cat friend, only the cat turns out to be growing very fast. And maybe, just maybe, it's not quite so imaginary. Can their new house really be magical? And can the worlds inside books escape and become real? There's a lot of humor in this novel. It's also very poignant. Abby is a mixed race character with her family on her father's side being Black from Jamaica. This was Hilary's first time writing a non-white girl as a main character. She told me her daughter said to her, "Mom, it's about time." So we had a sensitivity reader with the same British Jamaican background to help her with this character. And lastly, I want to give a shout out to a debut, Double the Danger and Zero Zucchini from Betsy Uhrig. This is also a middle grade book about books. Not that I love other things, but In this case, our hero is helping his aunt fix her incredibly boring children's book, which is about a frog visiting his grandfather and a prize-winning zucchini. Alex has the brilliant idea to add excitement and danger to his aunt's book, but because he's a reluctant reader with no imagination, he has to act out all the crazy stunts he wants her to put in the book. It's a hilarious read. It has unexpected depth and fabulous plot twists. And it's from a writer who is a copy editor at Little Brown and whose husband is a sales rep. So a debut from one of our very own fellow travelers. Yay for books.
Wonderful. Thank you, Karen. All right, up next we have Alison Heller, senior editor at 11.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for being here, and thank you, Emily, for all that you did for this. I want to start with a couple of shout-outs as well. One is our Vibrant Chapter Book series that we have pitched as Fresh Off the Boat meets Junie B. Jones, and features Mindy Kim, who is a Korean-American girl navigating friendship, a new school, a new town, all while exploring the topics of what it's like to constantly be the other in her new school and town. The author, agent, and I are all Korean American, and we all have said how much it would have meant to us when we were younger to have a series like this and to see a character who looked like us growing up. The upcoming fall book, as you can see, it's about school elections, and it's certainly coming out during a time where it's more important than ever to make sure our voices are heard. And there's a couple of nonfiction young readers editions that we wanted to call out as well here. The paperback of Never Caught, which was a National Book Award finalist in nonfiction, originally published with our SNS Adult imprint 37 Inc. It is the incredible story of Ona Judge, an enslaved woman who escaped bondage in the household of George and Martha Washington. Her story isn't as well known, and we just think it's really important for our young readers to really learn and understand this piece of history. And we also have a wonderful young readers edition of Misty Copeland's Life in Motion. Misty was the first Black principal female dancer at ABT. And she has been breaking barriers in her career and in an industry that is mostly white and where she faced and still faces racism today. She continues to use her platform to encourage underrepresented voices in the arts, particularly in the ballet and dance world. So you guys can check those wonderful titles out as well. Move on to the next one here. We have actually a California author here with Beth McMullen. 12-year-old Lola Banco has spent most of her life following her archaeologist father on various missions. That is until the day her father disappears and is presumed dead. But Lola just doesn't buy it, and with the help of some new friends and her eccentric great aunt Irma, Lola discovers that his disappearance has a lot to do with a mythical stone he was studying for nearly a year, and it is a stone that is so powerful it could control the world, and in the wrong hands could end it. Beth is the author of the Mrs. Smith Spy School for Girls series, and she is currently in Davis, California. And what I love about Beth's writing is her ability to find the humor in all situations, but still give a lot of heart to her spunky and really kick-butt girl characters. They are always the hero in their own story, which I love. And aside from the fun Indiana Jones-esque adventure, this book also delves into the complicated idea of family, both with Lola and her supporting cast. And the plot itself is full of actions, adventure, and lots of fun twists and turns to keep readers on their toes. And next up, we have Seekers of the Wild Realm. 12-year-old Bryn has always dreamed of becoming a seeker, just like her dad. They are tasked with being the sole protectors of the magical creatures who live in an area called the Wild Realm. And when the Seekers announce a competition to replace a retiring member, Bryn can't wait to compete, but only boys have become seekers, and Bryn is immediately banned from training. Another competitor, Ari, makes her a deal that if she helps him take care of a baby dragon he's kind of hidden and discovered, he'll help her train. And while they become each other's biggest competitors, they also become each other's biggest allies. And they need each other more than ever when the competition takes a dark and dangerous turn. This is perfect for fans of Brandon Mull or fans of How to Train Your Dragon, and Alex has really created a vivid world and setting here. She also poses questions about what happens when people try to enact change, along with commentary on restrictive gender roles. As I know many of us have experienced, Bryn is trying to deal with shattering a glass ceiling that was put in place long before she was born. And in trying to break those barriers, Bryn feels like she has to work twice as hard and be twice as loud to be heard. And for Ari, who is considered an empath in this world, he is often looked down upon for being a more emotional boy instead of being more physically strong like some of his counterparts. The first book in the series goes on sale next month and has received great reviews, including one from Booklist that called this a well-executed story that offers a wonderfully imaginative world for young fantasy fans to dive into. We have another book signed up in this series coming out next July.
Thank you, Allie.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Siobhan from Siobhan Spotlight.
Hello. Hi, how are you guys? I am so excited. I'm going to start off by talking about some of our ready to reads in our ready to read program. The first one I want to talk about is the next book in our You Should Meet series, Shirley Chisholm, going on sale in just a few days, June 16th. In 1968, Shirley Chisholm made history as the first African-American woman elected to Congress. In 1972, she made history again, entering the Democratic presidential race, the first woman and first African-American person to do so. Shirley is one of America's heroes, a strong and compassionate leader who championed the people of her constituency in the country, was unbought and unbossed, as was her campaign slogan, and someone every child and adult in the United States should meet. We have published biographies of so many heroes in this series, from kids who are saving the planet and changing the world, to heroes who made huge impacts in their time, like Katherine Johnson and Jesse Owens. And we are thrilled to be publishing a biography of Shirley Chisholm in time for the upcoming election. I also want to make, while we're on the topic of ready to reads, I want to make mention of two of our backlist titles. The first up is Secrets of American History. In Heroes Who Risk Everything for Freedom, we teach readers about the Civil War by way of the stories of inspiring Black Americans who helped the North win. People like Harriet Tubman, who was a member of Lincoln's top spy ring and led Union soldiers on missions through the South. And Robert Smalls, who used secret hand signals to escape slavery on a Confederate ship, which he then brought to the Union Army. Mary Tuvestre, who risked everything to bring plans for the first ironclad warship to the Union. Find out about these heroes who spied, fought, and sailed to freedom in this book of amazing true stories. I'm quoting the last page of the book here. The Union's path to victory was greatly helped by the bravery of countless spies and soldiers who risked their lives for justice and freedom, and their legacy lives on to this day. Each book in this series, I think we have in the next slide the full backlist, or yeah, each book in this series confronts the realities of American history head on. They make no apologies or excuses for the evils of slavery, discrimination, and injustice. There are several reviews on Goodreads that praise the series for this. I am very proud to publish these books, and I think they should be required reading for every elementary school student and adult in America. The other ready to read I want to tell you about is Come Sit With Me. This is a book we published in partnership with Crayola. It is about a book about a group of kids who paint a buddy bench in their school playground. Buddy benches are very much becoming a part of school playgrounds and neighborhood and community playgrounds. And so we wanted to do a book, especially with Crayola, about decorating a buddy bench. And so in this story, a group of kids is creating a buddy bench for the playground. When someone is feeling sad or lonely, it's up to all of us to help him or her feel better. But this group of kids can't decide how to paint it. Read this book to find out what colorful solution they come up with. This picture book includes a back matter section on the history of buddy benches, tips on being kind, and how to make your own buddy bench. And then while we're talking about ready to reads, I just wanted to tell you about the launch of a new nonfiction series from Simon & Schuster. This is Super Facts for Super Kids. This series is, we haven't yet done a fresh nonfiction series about animals, so we wanted to do it. We kind of use comic books as an inspiration. You can see like there's these lots of infographics and comic style illustrations to make these books really pop off the shelves. This is not your dry and boring, kind of book. This is very, very fun and funny and exciting and interesting. We're starting with tigers and sharks. We're going to move on to polar bears, alligators and crocodiles in future seasons. So we're very excited to introduce you to this. And then I have, we're publishing a pop-up edition of A Charlie Brown Christmas. So one of the things that I rescued from my office before we left was our proof dummy for this book. So if you can see on my video, I don't know how big I'm actually on your screen, but I do have a couple of interior spreads I can show you. We have an interior spread that Emily can show on the next slide, but that's only one of them. This book is really amazing. We were able to get all the entire story of the special in 5 spreads. We utilized a lot of flaps. So you can see, if I'm pulling it up right here, you can see how the flaps, we open up the flaps and then you see the images. So it's just a really, really special book. And I think as I was holding it, some of the pages fell out of the book. So give me one second. Let's see, I got another spread here. Oh yeah, so here's the last spread. So we see Charlie Brown coming to see the kids by the tree. And we see them all singing by the tree. So seeing it on my video doesn't do it justice. This is a truly wonderful retelling of this classic story. And then last but not least, we have Daniel Tiger's Little Songs for Big Feelings. So over the years, we've been to many places and met many people in Daniel Tiger's neighborhood. We focused on perennial topics like new siblings and going to the doctor. We've met the helpers in Daniel Tiger's neighborhood. This August, we are very excited to publish this book, a book that is very much needed right now. We know that parents and educators look to Daniel Tiger to help them make sense of the world for their children, especially in times like these. Each spread in this beautiful paperboard book will focus on an anxiety or issue that preschoolers face. Included for each message is a message from Daniel to the readers, a strategy song from the show, and tips for parents and caregivers. You can see how we incorporate all this into one spread in the sample spreads posted to the PowerPoint. There's the following sections: new experiences, big feelings, taking care of your body, growing up and being independent, family, friends, and neighbors, playtime, and safety and being scared. Touching on more than 50 issues, we know this book will be a great resource for parents, teachers, and caregivers. Thank you.
Thank you, Siobhan. All right, and last but definitely not least, Jeff Selane from Little Simon.
Hi, y'all. How are you doing? Thank you so much for taking the time and sitting with us. So first, I want to talk about This Little series. This is by Joan Hullab and it's illustrated by Daniel Rood. It's never too early to start bringing history and diversity onto your bookshelves and to introduce your kids to them. This Little Dreamer is the 6th title in this little series, and it introduces historically influential people who dreamed big enough to change the world in an engaging and colorful board book that's perfect for future dreamers in training. What we do in these books is we highlight 10 memorable historical figures who have paved the way. And so that parents and little ones alike will love this life-changing primer full of fun, age-appropriate facts and bold illustrations. We also have this little trailblazer. Maybe an interesting thing, when we started this series, we started with the book, This Little President. And that was one that when we were finished with it, we had a moment of like, wow, that's pretty astounding because we're looking at a lot of white men. And then we decided moving forward, like we're not gonna let that happen again, at least with this little series. What we really want is to bring diversity. We want to bring an empowering collective of people together. And that's what this little series is. And I think School Library Journal said it best when they had called this series an empowering collective of biographies for board book bins and shelves. Next up, we have Little Joy and Little Love by Nadine Brun-Kozma and Marion Kukriko. In this adorable first series of feelings, the main character, Little One, learns what it means to be full of joy and full of love. So much so that in each book, Little One transforms into Little Joy and Little Love. It's a perfect first series of feelings, and Little Joy highlights the sensation of being happy and bright, while Little Love highlights the shared love between parent and child. And of course, what I love most about the series is the way that Little One actually physically transforms into feeling. And more importantly, we have 2 more titles in this series that will be coming in spring 21 that are Little Mad and Little Worry. Because while we strive for love and joy, we still go through worry and anger. And our hope is that this series will help young readers recognize all of these important and very real feelings. And next up, we have Hide and Seek on the Farm. This book is a bright and bold novelty board book with chunky lift the flaps on each spread that introduce readers to all the animals on the farm. The art style is elevated, it's simple, it's printed with a 5th color, which will make the pages pop. And also think of this as kind of the link between that sophisticated touch, think, learn format that you know from Chronicle as well as the very chunky lift the flap formats that you're finding from Cottage Door Press, which what I think makes this hide and seek series a very engaging board book that just, it bulks up nicely with story, novelty, and heft. And then a couple of shout outs I want to give. Angelina Ballerina, as always, is back. And so we have the classic best-selling picture book, Angelina and the Princess. We've refreshed the hardcover editions, perfect for Angelina fans, new and old. And then we also have new from Sandra Boynton, How Big is Zagnod? This is a brand new board book about aliens of all shapes and sizes that could only be dreamt up by the beloved and best-selling Sandy. Sandy has sold over 70 million books, but none of those books have ever been about aliens. So we're very excited for that. But no matter how big Zagnod is in this story, it is still 100% Sandy Boynton, and we're thrilled to have a new title from her on our list.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, I think we're all set on the presentation. So I'm gonna invite the editors to come back on camera while the Kaliba folks tell us what questions have popped in on the chat.
That was amazing. There's so many things I want to read right now that I cannot imagine. First question up is, are there print arcs available?
That we're in a flux between working out the logistics on that, obviously because of the pandemic. You will be, for the fall titles, you will be getting an F&G kit and arcs and galleys of the novels if they're on the fall list. But I'll work with Shannon, Sherry, and Toy to make sure we get you what you want to read. So just send us requests.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. I have a question about, I'm fixated on the 3D illustration of the Secret Rhino Society. It's just fascinating to me. I just love it. And I just wonder what happens to, I mean, so the final artwork is actually the photograph, right? The photographed image, but what do you do with all those dioramas? I mean, do they just go away? Do they?
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you asked. Sam just did a virtual event with Books of Wonder on Sunday, and she gave a little tour of her studio, and she showed the bits and pieces of the dioramas just like all over her studio. And she said that she has to get rid of a ton of the pieces because they're, you know, the characters are about this big, but you can imagine that this character's this big plus the sets takes up her entire studio. So she gets rid of a lot of it, but then she also has some of it on display in various forms around her studio, and it's really cool to see. We're actually going to try to get some video of her studio that we can put on the Simon Kids website and maybe YouTube channel too, so folks can check it out because it's amazing.
Wonderful. Any other questions out there? I did post the link to the Edelweiss collection that they put together in the chat, and it is going to be in our newsletter too, our next newsletter. If there are no other, if there are no other questions, I do want to remind people of some of our upcoming virtually speaking events, which include a combination of rep picks and all kinds of things. We have a town hall later today with publishers, people from Tachyon and McSweeney's Publishing and Bookshop. We have a Tin House Virtual Cocktail Hour coming up. And we also, I want to remind everybody, on June 18th, we also have a Simon & Schuster editors, another editors for the adult side panel coming up. So, and it's all on our website. You can RSVP there. Stay tuned in our newsletters. So anything else from anybody?
I just want to say thank you so much to, you Kaliba booksellers, who we so love and appreciate everything you do for your books, and we're honored to collaborate with you to get great books into kids' hands that empower them and engage them and educate them. So thank you so much for tuning in. And if you need anything if you want to read something, if you have questions that maybe you thought of, some of you have my email, you can definitely reach out to me, but they're also your lovely reps, Toy, Sherry, and Shannon will help you out, and we'll make sure you get what you need. And we hope to see you guys again soon.
Thank you.
Bye, stay safe, everybody.